delighted to have you to discuss this very important topic, something that you know is very near and dear to my heart as a survivor. I have shared with you previously that I suffered sexual molestation as a child, and I did not tell about it until my adult years. During that time, there was so much that manifested from that experience that I had to seek counseling. I had to get some spiritual care, some soul care. I had to go through an internal overhaul almost to be able to maintain simple things such as relationships, not just intimate ones, but just with people in general. So we want to get into some of that. I'm going to let you first just touch on some of the statistics for our viewers. I know some of us have probably heard it, but I just want to touch on it again for those who may not know the prevalence of sexual abuse in society today. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, it is highly underreported. Anyone who does these statistics will tell you it's underreported because most children and most adults don't tell. But the estimate is 1 in 3 to 4 girls has been sexually molested in some way by the time they're 18, and 1 in 7 boys. And certainly we don't want to not think about boys because that is pretty common too.
And that's very important because we do tend to forget about our boys. We spend so much time focusing on the girls and the women, and that's like a lost group, a forgotten group rather, that we really do need to focus on, especially with the way society is going. You know, our boys are at risk, and we think about it, we don't think about them. Even we think boys are tougher, as if they can handle it. And so that's very important. You have a story that you mentioned, and I want you to read that for our viewers because that story does touch on so many things, and it touched my heart when I heard it, and I want to give you some time to share that with our readers.
Okay. I will tell you about the story after I read the story. When I was 12 years old, Daddy started sexual abuse. I cried and begged him not to, but said it was all right. It was what daddies and daughters did. I never liked it. When I was 14 years old, a friend guessed what was going on and told me it was what mothers and daddies did. I didn't believe her at first. My daddy wouldn't do anything wrong, but finally she convinced me. And I felt hate for him in place of love, pure rage. But I never let on and acted like I loved him before people. I didn't want my mother to know. He was a sick man. If I refused him, he was grouchy and mean to Mother and me and kicked the dogs and slammed the cats against the wall for nothing. I couldn't stand for him to be mean to Mother and animals, so I never told anyone until recently. I knew no one would believe me. Mother and I were both afraid of him in his bad times. I think she knew, but was afraid to say anything. She was a gentlewoman. He never hit us, but we never knew if he would. Once Daddy spanked me because he accused me of doing something that I didn't do, and he wouldn't believe me and said the spanking was for telling a lie. Boy, what a whopper he told and never got punished. The sexual abuse went on until I was 18 years old and left home for nurses training. I know the Lord's Prayer says to forgive those that trespass against you, but I can't forgive Daddy for what he did to me with the sexual abuse. Every time I think about it, I shake inside like a bowl of jelly. I prayed to be able to forgive him, but I can't. I don't have it in me because every time I think of it, I feel rage, not forgiveness. During the last 60 years, I have been in some stage of depression and blame this awful feeling on him. I want to add one more sentence that comes from later. This person had had an illness, and she said, I couldn't work, so I had to go home. But I told Daddy if he touched me, I'd tell everyone. he believed me. And that was the end of the sexual abuse. This was my mother, and she never told the story until she was 73 years old. Mm-hmm. And she was depressed most of her life. Mm-hmm. That affected my childhood because she was in and out of the hospital. And then when my children were born, she had so many problems and so much illness that it affected my children's lives because so much of my time was spent with her. Mm-hmm. And so we need to stop the cycle, and the way to stop the cycle is to tell and get help.